right, so today we are going to be reviewing for the Chapter 8 Quiz 2. So there's a lot of things that we've done, but most of it was either the graphing stuff or the solving quadratics that we just finished. So a reminder from the graphing stuff. Sometimes you're going to have to complete your ordered pairs, right? Where I give you something like 2 comma blank or blank comma 0. You're going to have to complete them by substituting the value in, simplifying, and writing your answer as a coordinate pair, x comma y. There's also the idea of finding the x, or finding the intercepts, which I did teach you how to do on a graphing calculator. And if you want to review that, look at 8.4 part 2, but I really think that it's easiest just to do it yourself, because remembering those steps is difficult. So with this one, all you really have to remember is if you're trying to find the x-intercept, the y equals 0. So the opposite equals 0. Or if you're trying to find the y-intercept, then x equals 0. So again, the opposite equals 0. And then you substitute in, find the other, answer as a coordinate. Substitute in, find the other variable, then you can do the coordinate. Finding the vertex is something else that we talked about. Okay, which means you're going to have to use this formula. So you have to have this formula memorized so you can find the x part of your vertex. Once you find the x part, you substitute the x in and find the y. Final answer is a coordinate, or there is a way to do this using the graphing calculator. And actually, this one's actually easy to do on calculator. So I would review that if you don't remember how to do that from the 8.2 notes. Okay. Then the final step was to actually be able to graph the quadratic. Remembering that I require that you find the vertex, you have to write that in, that you create a t-chart of points required for full credit. You need to plot your points. You can use your graphing calculator to create those t-charts. If you don't remember, look back at those 8.4 part 2 notes. And another thing that we kept forgetting to add here was you'll have to be able to tell me the domain and range, remembering that domain is always negative infinity to infinity. The range is based on y of the vertex. Okay. And then this is what we just did the other day, so I'm not really going to go over it all that much in detail. Just remember, you got to be able to solve a quadratic inequality, which means you have to make it equal 0, solve to find your critical points, remembering that those critical points then go on a number line. Then you have to test your points to determine what area will be shaded. Remember that if there's no or equal, you use the, sorry about that, you use no or equal like this, we use the parentheses. If there is an or equal sign, then you have to use the square brackets, and your final answer has to be an interval notation. All right, so let's start doing the problems. I'm going to say, like I always do on these, make sure you try each of these on your own first, and then just check your answers using the video. Only watch the problems you got incorrect or you did not understand. Okay, this will ensure that you're ready for the quiz tomorrow. So the first one asks you to find the range. So if I were you, I would use a graphing calculator to do this, because that will make this super quick, remember? But if I'm going to find the range, I have to find the vertex first. So let's go on to turn on our graphing calculator, clear everything out. I would graph this, because remember, this is like saying y equals 6x squared minus 4, so I'd go to the y equals button. And now I can clear this out and say 6, oops, press the wrong button, 6x squared minus 4. Then we're going to graph it to see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like. If I'm going to find the vertex, remember the vertex is the point where it changes directions. So this time our vertex is a minimum. So remember, we go to the calculate because we're going to calculate that minimum. So I have to press second calc. And since I'm doing minimum, I scroll down to 3 and press enter. Now it's saying what is left of that. So since I'm already on this, remember we scroll side to side. If I think this is like the vertex, then I'm going to go to left. If the left a few pushes, press enter. Now it's asking you to go to the right of where you think that point is. So if I think the point's here, I have to go to the right on this a few clicks. And now it's asking me to guess what my answer is. So I'm going to go ahead, scroll down. I think it's right about there. And then they're going to give me the answer, which is 0, -4. So 0, -4 is my vertex. That's going to help me with finding my range, because remember, my range is my y value. So I'm going to make a little rough sketch right here. Looks something like this, where this point is 0, -4. So now I'm going to remember the fact that my range is my y values, which is the up and down, right? So I look and I say, does it ever stop going up? No, so that's positive infinity. Does this graph ever stop going down? Yes, it stops going down here. So what's my y value here? Well, my y value here is the y value of the vertex. So this is -4. So now when I write my range, remember my range should always be low to high. So I have to go with the smallest first. Well, is infinity or -4 smaller? So -4 is smaller, infinity is larger. -4 gets a square bracket because it is a point on the graph, and infinity gets the parenthesis. Okay, now we're going to go through that same basic process again with the next one. So I'm going to use my graphing calculator, go to the y equals, and type this in. -x² plus 6x plus 10. I have to delete the rest of that out of there. Oops. Never mind, we're going to clear it and start over. -x² plus 6x plus 10. So again, I'm trying to find my vertex first, so I'm going to graph it to see what this graph basically looks like, and I'll make a little rough sketch of it down below. Okay, so it goes off my screen, but I should be able to still do this because the basic idea is that it looks like this even though I can't see it. Now if I wanted to, I could zoom out so that I could see it easier, and I can just pick where I'm going to zoom out from. So I'm going to zoom out up here somewhere. Let's see if that allows me to see the top. And it did. So now we can see the whole thing, which is fine, but you didn't need to. I just went to zoom. I'm going to go back to zoom standard to show you that you can even do this without zooming out. Okay, so my vertex, you should realize my vertex is up here, so that means it's the highest point on the graph, which means it's a maximum. So I'm going to need to calculate the maximum. So I go to second calc, down to maximum. Now this is saying I need to be left of it. Well, right now I know that my vertex is somewhere up here, so I already know I'm to the left of it, so I can press enter. Now I need to get to the other side so that I can be to the right of it. Still can't see mine. Oh, there it is. Now I definitely know I'm to the right of it because it's somewhere up here. Then when it says to guess, you can't really guess very easily, so I scrolled over and then I just pressed enter. And it says 2.99999, which is basically 3. So 3, 19 is my vertex. So this is my vertex is 3, 19. And if you did it zoomed out, it would work the same exact way. So now we have to do our range, remembering that our range is our y value, right? So it's the up and down. So I can say, does it ever stop going up? Yes, it stops going up here. So my y value here is equal to, well, remember our coordinates are x, y, so it's the y part of my vertex. So it's 19. And here, does it ever stop going down? No, so it goes to -infinity. And remember, when we do range or domain, it should always be the smallest number first and the highest number second. So the lowest thing is -infinity. My highest thing is 19. The number gets the square bracket because it's part of the graph. Okay. On to the next one, which requires us to complete our ordered pair. So if we're going to go ahead and complete our ordered pair here, The idea is, remember, f of x is a fancy way of saying y. So this is really y equals x squared plus 4x minus 12, right? And here, x comma y, they are telling you that the x is negative 5. So I'm going to use y equals x squared plus 4x minus 12, and I'm going to put negative 5 in place of the x so that I can find my y. Then we can go ahead and type that into our graphing calculator. So in parentheses, negative 5 squared plus 4 parentheses negative 5 minus 12 is negative 7. So we get y equals negative 7. So I have an x of negative 5. I have a y of negative 7. So that ordered pair is negative 5 comma 7. Comma negative 7, since this one was negative. Now we're going to need to do this again, but instead, if we look at this, x comma y, the y is what is 0. So I'm going to use y equals x squared plus 4x minus 12, but now my y is 0, so 0 equals x squared plus 4x minus 12. And you should notice that there are two x's here. Since there are two x's here, we're going to need to x squared and x means we're going to have to factor to solve. So I have to think about, oops, that was a 12, what multiplies to give us negative 12 and adds to give us 4. Well, 2 times 6 is 12. If the 2 were negative, we could add that and get 4. So this is 0 equals x minus 2, x plus 6. Set each piece equal to 0. And solve. So add 2. X equals 2, subtract 6, x equals negative 6. So now we have two possible answers. We have x equals 2 or x equals negative 6. And then my y is 0. So 2 comma 0 is one of my answers. And negative 6 comma 0 is the other one. Same basic idea here. Even though it says r of x, this really means y equals x squared plus 12x plus 27. And again, they're asking us to complete the ordered pair. So here we know the 2, and the 2 is our x value. So if x equals 2, we can plug 2 into y equals x squared plus 12x plus 27. But now we're going to put 2 in its place. So y equals 2 in parentheses squared plus 12 times 2 plus 27. So we can go ahead and type that into our calculator. So y equals 55. So now I know y equals 55 when x equals 2. So my coordinate is 2 comma 55. Then we're going to go ahead and do that same thing here. But now x comma y. Now my y is what equals 0. So y equals x squared plus 12x plus 27. We're going to put 0 in the place of y. And now we have to factor this, so we have to think about what multiplies to give us 27 and adds to give us 12. Well, 3 times 9 is 27, and they add to 12, so this is 0 equals x plus 3. X plus 9, we set each piece equal to 0. And then we solve, so subtract 3. X equals negative 3, subtract 9. X equals negative 9, so my final coordinate here, we know the y is 0 and the x is negative 3, so it's negative 3 comma 0. Here in this one, we know the x is negative 9 and the y is 0, so negative 9 comma 0 is the other coordinate. Okay, we're going to do 2 more before we go on to our next video. Actually, we're going to finish this page out before we go on to our next video. So the next piece is asking you to find the vertex. Well, remember, for finding the vertex, we can do x equals opposite of b over 2a, right? So realize here, right, my a is 2, my b is 12, my c is 3. So the opposite of 12 would be negative 12 over 2 times 2. So we should do the 2 times 2 first. Negative 12 over 4 gives me negative 3. So I have x equals negative 3, which is the first part of it. Now that I know the x, we're going to substitute it back into this formula. Y equals 2x squared plus 12x plus 3. But now we know that the x is negative 3. So we can go ahead and type that in. So in 2 parentheses, negative 3 squared plus 12 parentheses, negative 3 plus 3 would give us negative 15. So my vertex is x comma y, so it's negative 3 comma negative 15. Now, you could have also done this on the graphing calculator, right? You can go to your y equals button, clear it out, and type this in. 2x squared plus 12x plus 3. Go ahead and graph it. Okay, now this one ends up off the graph, but again, you can just press the zoom button. We can zoom out because we want to see it further out, and we want to be further out down here somewhere. So if I press enter, it zooms out. When you graph it, you should realize your vertex is a minimum. So then we go to calculating that. So second calc, we're calculating a minimum value. So if I think that's the minimum, I go to the left of it, press enter, right bound, so that's the minimum. I go to the right few clicks, press enter, and we think somewhere around there is the answer, so I made a guess. Now this says negative 3.000001, which is negative 3, and then negative 15. So you can get your answer either way. It's up to you, you make the choice. So I think for number 6, I'm going to go ahead. Well, I'm going to do it the long way, just so you guys know. So x equals opposite of b over 2a, right? So here my a is 1, my b is negative 10, my c is 7. So the opposite of b would be positive 10 over 2 times a, which is 1, is 10 over 2, which is 5. So x equals 5. Now we're going to plug this into here. So y equals, instead of x, it's 5 squared minus 10 times 5 plus 7. So we can go to our calculator. Type it in, 5 squared minus 10 times 5 plus 7. Y equals negative 18. So I've got a vertex of 5 comma negative 18. But again, I could go to my y equals. I can clear this out and type it in. X squared minus 10x plus 7. And I can graph it. And again, you should look here. This ends up being a minimum again. So we go to second calculate. 3 is the minimum. That doesn't look right. Let me look at my y equals again. Oh no, that's good. Sorry. Just wanted to make sure. So we're going to calculate minimum. Right now it says my x is at negative 4, so I have to keep scrolling. Oh, there it is. So if I think this is my bottom number, then I go to the left and press enter. If I think that's my vertex, I go to the right and press enter. Scroll over, make a guess. It calculated it as 4.999999, which is 5, comma negative 18. So again, I would accept you doing this either way. Just make sure whatever way you do it, you know how to do that piece. This one, you really should do by hand. So x-intercept, remember, the opposite equals 0, so that means y equals 0. So I'm going to take this formula, y equals x squared minus 3x minus 54, and I'm going to put 0 in for the y. But this is the key part. If you know this, you should be able to do the rest. So 0 equals x squared minus 3x minus 50. So I have to find two numbers that multiply to give us negative 50 and that add to give you negative 3. Oh, sorry, this was a 54. Make sure you copy it down correctly. Multiply to negative 54. and multiply to give us, or add to give us negative 3. Well, I know 9 goes into 54, and 9 goes into 54 6 times, so 9 and 6, and to get the 3 negative, the 9 would have to be negative. So 0 equals x minus 9, x plus 6. Set each piece equal to 0, and then solve. So add 9, x equals 9, subtract 6, x equals negative 6, and then 9 comma my y is 0, negative 6 comma my y is 0, so these are my two x-intercepts. And then I need to go ahead and do the same thing for my y-intercept, but for my y-intercept, again, the opposite equals 0, so x equals 0, so y would equal, instead of x, I would put 0 squared minus 3 times 0 minus 54. Well, 0 squared is 0, 3 times 0 is 0, so y equals negative 54. So my x equals 0, my y equals negative 4, so 0 comma negative 54 is my y-intercept. Okay, then you can go ahead and do that same thing for this one, right? If I'm going to find my x-intercept, that means my y equals 0, so I put 0 in place of my y, so 0 would equal x squared plus 5x plus 2. And that was not supposed to be a 2, that was supposed to be a 6, so please make sure you change that. So this was supposed to be a 6 also, so we have to find two numbers that multiply to give us 6 and that add to 5, which would be 2 and 3. So x plus 2, x plus 3 equals 0. So that means we set each piece equal to 0. And then solve. Remembering that the y on this was 0, and these are my two x values. So this would be negative 2 comma 0, negative 3 comma 0 as my x-intercepts. And then to find your y-intercept, x equals 0, so I'm going to put 0 in place of the x's here. So y, instead of x, I put 0 squared, plus 5 times 0 plus 6. Well, 0 squared is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, so y equals 6. So we have the x is 0, the y is 6, so 0 comma 6 is your y-intercept.